Hi, everyone. My name is Michael O'Sullivan, and I'm the CEO of Bywire News. And I'm joined today by Bart Wyatt, who's the Solutions Architect Director for Block.one. Hi, Bart. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm good. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. Are you surviving your pandemic?
I am surviving the pandemic as well as I can be, for sure.
It's great to hear. Can you describe your role as a solutions architect director for Block.one? And can you also tell us what drew you to working in this emerging technology and Block.one specifically?
Sure thing. So the role in solutions architecture is relatively new for me. I've been with Block.one for about 3 years now, and I've been doing the solutions architecture for almost a year. And the thing that I really like the most about it is I'm now directly responsible for going out into the real world, as I like to call it, and businesses there, and seeing how blockchain can make an impact for what they do for the world. We've talked a lot about blockchain being a transformational technology that can really change a lot of the way that people interact with each other, people do business, and things like that. But until someone goes out there and actually shows some of these enterprises and some of these businesses how it works and explains to them, the benefits that it can have, it's harder for them to really see it and really get it. We have some really strong advocates in that world, but they need help. And so, as a director of solutions architecture, I've been going out and actually trying to make those changes happen in emergent technology divisions in various corporations around the globe. We've had some pretty good success with it. I think a lot of people are seeing EOSIO in particular as a transformative opportunity, and they're really trying to dig in to see what can change about how they do business and how they treat their customers and things like that with our technology, which is very exciting for me. I came from a heavy engineering background. I was there before version 1.0, sitting alongside the rest of the engineering team, really leading it and trying to get the software itself built and out into the world so that various public networks could launch on it. And to see it kind of come into being, and then also be in charge of taking it even further and introducing it to new people and showing them what it's capable of is really been kind of a nice treat for me.
So it's nice to get away from the computer screen and actually connect with people and have these kind of discussions as well as writing fantastic code.
It is certainly nice to connect with people, and it's certainly nice to talk to them about how blockchain can affect it. But I'm always going to miss my computer screen. I keep my hands dirty, as I like to say, in the code base. So you'll still see code changes from me every now and then when I can't help myself. But a technology that sits on the shelf is not all that useful to the broader world. So it also takes people who are going to push it out there and get people using it.
Okay, so to get everyone up to speed, can you explain what blockchain interoperability actually means? And I would like you to include the complexity around running Solidity code within EOSIO. And what I mean by that is the fact that it's kind of like running Mac and Windows together, right? They should be incompatible. So it was a great solution. And how important was the implementation of the Ethereum Virtual Machine?
Yeah, so let's start from the very top. When I say bring blockchain to the world, I don't just mean EOSIO. I mean all of them, all the blockchains. We have a set of blockchain technologies, Ethereum being one of them, EOSIO being another one, and they all have some trade-offs. They're all very good at one particular thing, which are kind of the core fundamentals of blockchain. And that's what we really want to be out there in the world. And in order to get that done, we need to work together. It's kind of a team game at this point. And so without the ability for these blockchain technologies to work together, to interoperate, we leave one half or the other of the development workforce and the brilliance on the table. And that's not really going to get us where we want to go. So with things like bringing the EVM into the EOSIO ecosystem, what we're really trying to do is open the door and say, why don't you come over and see what that technology, which you liken it to Windows and Mac, and I think that's accurate to a point. At a development level, I think it's more about these developers, they are trained into the blockchain concepts. They know how to transform businesses, but they have picked a tool chain that is, for reasons that are a little bit unknown to me at this point, tied directly to consensus mechanisms. And each one of those has a pro and con. And that's where I would say the real Mac versus Windows kind of distinction comes in. And we want to break down those borders. There are times when Solidity and the developer workforce there is going to be a better fit for a business. And there's going to be times when C++ based contracts like EOSIO are going to be a better fit. And we don't want to force people to make a misfit because they need some of the guarantees that, say, delegated proof of stake offers, or they want some of the differences in opinions about how you should handle common resources on a blockchain. And so it's those kind of decisions that we separate out. And then we also invite people to come in and explore both sides of the argument. So, by letting EVM into EOSIO as an ecosystem, we not only said, Ethereum developers come over to our side and see what it's like when you're in EOSIO, but we actively promoted some of the best and brightest minds in our community to go out and study the EVM, to really get down to how would you implement that yourself. I want, the developers who are familiar with Ethereum working with the developers who are familiar with EOSIO, and then bring in all the rest of the blockchains too, when we start talking about how do we get bigger industries, bigger businesses, and really, the big impacts that people talk about when we talk about transformation with blockchain.
Are you saying now any Ethereum smart contract can in effect be run within the EVM without any code modifications on an EOSIO network? And if so, how important is that transformation, do you think, for the wider community?
So as of right now, with the work that Syed and his team have done, you can pretty much drop almost every Ethereum contract right on top of an EOSIO chain, hook up the exact same client, point it to a different web address. You're not going to go to the Ethereum mainnet block explorer or that API. You'll come to one of your EOSIO APIs, but otherwise, that's it. Everything else just out of the box works. And to their credit, they went the extra mile from the challenge perspective, and even adopted some of the common tools and some of the common test frameworks. So those will work out of the box too. I think this is very important, not only because it's going to start a conversation that breaks down some walls and gets these developers talking to each other, but also because of the kind of freedom it will give anyone who has made a choice one way or the other. They've chosen to develop on Solidity, and then maybe at the last hour, something changes about their business use case, or unfortunately for them, another very successful application launches on the Ethereum mainnet and it becomes congested, and they're looking for, kind of harbor in that storm. And we're going to give them an option with no strings attached. Just drop it on the blockchain, whichever of the many public blockchains have deployed it, and continue your business operations. Kind of saying the point is that you made a successful application that engaged users and hopefully delivered some value from a blockchain perspective to them. And, that's what we want, because when that happens, it's going to raise the ecosystem broadly. So we as EOSIO are going to get a benefit, even though that was authored in Solidity on Ethereum. Are
you now, in effect, saying you could run costless transactions, Ethereum smart contracts on an EOSIO contract at a rate of, say, 10,000 transactions per second with no gas fee, effectively?
I mean, sure. I think that is one possible configuration that you could run on. I mean, the nice thing about EOSIO is that it's huge. Yeah, it's big. But remember, governance on EOSIO is a flexible, programmable thing. So as you look across the pantheon of the EOSIO chains, you're going to see different resource models, and you're going to see different transaction throughputs because they've incentivized their block producers different ways. And that kind of options that you're giving developers to really fit their business use case, almost down to the exact science of looking at, what are my costs? What are my revenues? What am I going to bring in? What am I not going to do? Those kind of options are also huge. So from a consumer perspective, yeah, everyone likes free transactions. I think they have really powered a lot of the EOSIO ecosystem, but that's not the only way to do business across the board. And some people are going to look at different incentive models. And I feel like EOSIO affords them that opportunity with all the available mainnets.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Well, given the hackathon was originally intended to run for a year, were you shocked or surprised at how quickly Syed Jafri, who is of course the genius behind Blocks.io and the winner of the bounty, how quickly he solved the problem and frankly, how elegantly he solved the problem?
I don't want to take anything away from Syed. He is a genius, and yes, it blew us away at how fast he was able to address this problem and do it so well. Mm-hmm. But I also want to mention we had to pick a winner, and that was kind of unfortunate. There were half a dozen other teams that also did an amazing job from our community at rallying behind this cry, this cause, this ability to bring the EVM there, and they also did really amazing jobs. So while yes, we're very happy with how Syed and his team did, and extraordinarily happy with the way the results of that competition came out, I think there's a broader thing that blows me away, which is not simply that they were able to do it, but that the community behind this technology believes in it so much that we've got multiple teams of geniuses out there that can solve this problem in a third of the time that we were expecting it to take. We put it out there as an aggressive challenge. We wanted to push the boundaries. We wanted our community to actually ask itself, what can we do if we actually put our minds to it and try really hard and dig in. And the response was, it blew us away. Yeah, it was mind blowing. And it's, if we could elevate all of them, I think we would certainly try to do it. But there's, it turns out there was more of them than we expected as far as, truly amazing teams out there taking EOSIO to a level that, we suspected was possible, but we hadn't proved it. We hadn't shown it yet, and they did.
So I think we both know the answer to this, but I think the audience would find it interesting. So what motivated you to offer the bounty rather than hire a team and try and solve the problem yourself? And I guess you kind of answered part of the community engagement section in your last answer, but just what was that motivation really?
We as Block.one, we're trying to participate in this movement. We're trying to be a part of it. We hope to be leaders in it. We hope to be thought leaders in it for sure. But it's going to thrive based on that grassroots development effort. Our community, the Ethereum community, the other communities across the board coming together and making it happen. There's just no way for us to contend with that breadth of expertise and manpower. So we put out the challenge there, kind of hoping to incentivize an explosion of interest in pushing the boundaries of EOSIO, and to really get a community bootstrapped into this idea that they are in the driver's seat, that they can really make this go forward and thrive, is difficult. And it's not the normal way of operating. So we didn't want to just go ahead and contract out to a third-party contractor and just get a temporary development team, put together a Gantt chart and just slam it through and then say, here it is to the world, goodbye. That wouldn't have had the same fringe benefits of incentivizing the community to actually think about this from a community perspective. What does a community that has community-led innovation, community-led development look like? And we will be there helping them, incentivizing them, encouraging them whenever we can be. But we can't really do this by ourselves, nor do we really want to.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you recognize that, and the intelligence of the crowd, I think, is phenomenal. And I think you're right. Community engagement and fringe benefits far outweigh the internal development. So I would assume in the future you have plans to offer these kind of these bounties or these challenges again for different aspects of the project. Is that right?
In the future, what I can say is that we're going to constantly work with the community and try to incentivize this feeling of community-led innovation, community-led development. So we're going to be there as a partner to the community. Can't really talk about in what way, shape, or form that's going to look like in the future. We're going to constantly look and figure out where we can impact and do those things. And if it's one thing or another, we got to remember we did the EOSIO challenge and the virtual hackathon this year. Those are two experimental things that both had really good success and really got the community engaged. I'm sure we'll try more things in the future. I'm just not sure what.
Okay, so that leads me on to my next question, which is an interesting one. So Block.one has often been described as, not by you guys, but by others, as the Ethereum killer. So by paying $200,000 bounty to create the interoperability between the two competing networks, improving the use cases of blockchain Like, what's your intentions to improve the overall community aspect of blockchain integration, or were you trying to kind of show how easy it is to port over Ethereum users onto EOS, making that kind of one-way bridge, if you like, from Ethereum to EOS, but very simply without any kind of burden to entry?
So I feel like that's a possible interpretation of the challenge. It's hard to do something in the industry that can't be interpreted, one way or another. I can say that we had really good intentions with this. In order for us to get those two blockchain technologies talking together so that you can have an application deployed on an Ethereum network and an EOSIO network, you need a couple of things. But the biggest thing you need is for the developers to understand each other. This was perhaps one of the better ways we thought of to get our developers talking across that border. Now, the technology itself might also be able to facilitate, because it's nice to have code that you write in one language that you can then run on both sides of a bridge without necessarily having to mess around with the rest of it. And I don't know if it would have looked better or worse if we had decided to try to write a Solidity contract that allowed you to run EOSIO contracts on there. So someone had to make kind of the first foray into this idea of, here's the olive branch, here's what we're going to do. We need to get talking. We need to get working on this interoperability solution. And, that's kind of how we came to it, how we decided to do it.
So what does this now mean for the wider EOSIO, Ethereum, and I guess the general blockchain communities? Do you think the solution will dramatically increase collaboration between the two groups? And what type of real world outcomes can we look forward to seeing over the next coming months and years, given that we can now interoperate?
Sure. All I can say is I hope it does increase the collaboration between these two communities. I really think there are a lot of opportunities out there in the world right now, especially as you brought up, with the pandemic and everything else that is going on, for industry leaders in our industry specifically to come together to solve bigger problems than which one of these blockchain technologies is the best. At the core of each one of our missions, we have this idea that blockchain can transform the world for the better. And I don't know if you looked around, the world's going through a bit of a hard time right now. It could use some help. And I feel like, particularly when you get around to blockchains as being kind of a nexus of technology, but also group movement, community action and incentives. And then you look at some of the problems that we've had that have been exposed by this pandemic. And I think, I don't want to be too prescriptive, but I think that there are a lot of use cases in that for blockchain. But there's not going to be, one blockchain that comes on and suddenly aligns the entire globe to address a pandemic. We're going to need to work across both geographical and political borders, but also technology borders. It's just kind of the physics of the nature. So I want us to be prepared as a community, as the EOSIO community, but also the broader blockchain community, to address those things when they come up, to work together to a bigger goal, to a bigger end than just simply trying to win the blockchain wars. In my view, there is ample green space out there for blockchains to be transformative, to disrupt things. Now is not the time to be arguing over niches or trying to take over a small section of the pie. Now is the time to grow the pie. I know I've already used at least one adage, but I'll use one more. The rising tide raises all boats. I don't know if that's going to be the case 100 years from now, but certainly right now, we are in a situation where blockchain can go and make transformative effects on a lot of industries and really change a lot of people's lives. We just need to do it. And we can do more of that more quickly if we work together.
Did the emergence of DeFi have any bearing on the acceleration of the interoperability? And also, do you think interoperability will exist between nearly all blockchains in the future?
For the first part, the emergence of DeFi, I don't know that it necessarily had a large effect on it. Financial services, decentralized finance, that has always been a topic space for blockchains that's been very powerful. It would benefit from us being able to talk across these borders. I think you see a lot of successful projects. In fact, not to kind of toot our own horn, but we have a lot of projects like that in the EOSIO community that do try to do decentralized finance applications across the borders of blockchain. And so there's a benefit there for sure, but I don't think that has necessarily dramatically increased the need for interoperability. We just need it. As to the second side of your question, yeah, I think for the most part in the future, this will become one of, if not the most important metrics by which technology is evaluated in the blockchain industry, is essentially how well it plays with others. When you think about the legacy systems that people will create after their first introduction to blockchain, going forward, those will become foreign blockchains. Even if that was just an older version of EOSIO, it will need to stabilize in order to serve some sort of real purpose. And then as EOSIO as a protocol evolves and moves forward and creates itself new capabilities and really becomes amazing, it will look back at older versions of itself and say, if I can't interoperate with that, then we lose access to all those existing applications. So in my mind, it's a foregone conclusion. In the future, one of, if not the most important things that you will evaluate blockchain technology by is its ability to integrate and interoperate with other blockchain technology. I mean, we think that blockchain can underpin everything. And the idea that one single solution would fit all those use cases seems a little silly when you say it that way, right? So it's going to need to happen. And in order to get that world that's interconnected, it just means that you're going to need to talk with other blockchain technologies, with other blockchain developers, with people who maybe don't share exactly the same ideas, but share the broader sense that blockchain can be transformative.
We've spoken a lot about the positives. So are there any limitations to the current implementation, the current solution? And how does Block.one think they may be overcome over the next couple of months or years?
Even though the work is stellar and amazing, we still have to consider this kind of a proof of concept. What we took was EVM off the shelf and Solidity off the shelf, and we plumbed them into EOSIO just almost to see if we could do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that is the best way for Ethereum developers to come into our ecosystem and for, say, EOSIO developers to discover the Ethereum ecosystem. Now that we've opened that door, we've got, as we like to say, we've got customers, and we can look at their experience and we can say, what about this experience isn't quite meeting our goal, and adapt to it. But it's going to take a little while for people to kind of get some time under this solution and understand what's good, what's bad, and we'll evolve as it goes forward. I don't think this is, by any stretch of the imagination, the last word in Ethereum EOSIO integration. It's actually just the first, and it's good. Every journey starts with a first step, and this is a big first step, and I think it's going to be amazing. But yeah, we'll run into some limitations. There wasn't an exact fit for some of the blockchain level Ethereum concepts that we couldn't replicate. So I say most Ethereum applications can drop in because most people don't need that level of detail about what the underpinning blockchain is doing. But there are some applications, particularly when you get into very niche realms, that were depending on extremely specific blockchain parameters from Ethereum, and we can't support those right now. And to actually emulate that level is going to be more work, and maybe it's valuable work. We'll have to see. We'll have to see as people start hammering on the use cases whether or not it's missing a beat somewhere.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns, because obviously you've got two separate languages communicating with each other? Do you have any concerns around security, or those broadly alleviated by the fact that it operates within the EVM, the virtual machine itself? And are you going to look to improve or synchronize error handling? Because I know there's a lack of try, catch, throw error handling in the EVM, and I just wondered how you're going to approach that in the future.
I don't think we're going to take any efforts to change or evolve the EVM spec. That is not kind of ours to move. Now, since we're starting to work with them, I would certainly be interested in joining those conversations and seeing where they're going. I don't think we've adopted any additional security risk from this. I mean, the EVM itself was already pretty well battle tested, and other than some of the well-known issues with EVM just from their history, things that caused like DAO hack, et cetera, there's no additional problems that have kind of emerged from embedding that VM into our machine. Meanwhile, I don't necessarily think we've been able to improve upon the state of the art for their security, and that's not really the point, right? The point is to basically adopt them where they are, bring them in where they are, and if we want to start a community conversation now about going forward, then we can certainly do that. But in a way, like that has to be an agreement between the people who are maintaining the EVM and the people who are maintaining EOSIO public networks and things like that. So. Like I said, first step in a longer discussion, I do hope that we will end up working a little more closely with those tech teams and understanding, how their changes in the future and our changes in the future will affect each other. You also kind of asked the question of like, these are two different languages now talking to each other. This has become normal in the technology world. You don't really see a whole lot of technology stacks when you look at an application that are single programming language, single technology all the way through. So we're already as a broader industry of computer technologists very, very good at adapting to this idea of use the right tool for the right job. And I would like to see even more languages show up, because every one of those that shows up comes with a base of developers who's well trained and maybe just missing some of the nuance of blockchain. The more we can reduce that barrier to entry, the more talented developers will onboard into blockchain and really align to our cause, right? So I'm all about extending those bridges everywhere I can.
That's awesome. Well, that leads me nicely then to my final question. What advice would you give to someone starting out as a coder or an engineer or a front ender or a UI, UX designer or whatever? What advice would you give them to focus on at this point in their career, whether they're older retraining, because there's going to be a lot of job losses over the next few years. There's going to be a lot of people entering retraining. So what kind of advice would you give them, and where should they focus their efforts on at an early stage?
Yeah, I think now is a better time than it's ever been to get into blockchain. Efforts like this have really kind of made it not only easier to enter, but also it's less likely that you're going to make a really bad choice up front. Obviously, I would think that you'd have an easier time coming to EOSIO. I think we've got a really compelling offering, a really compelling set of tools. I think we're pretty welcoming. But if you decide that you go somewhere else, we've already kind of set up the bridging network now to where you can not worry about whether or not that change or that decision has put you at risk of being out of date or anything like that anytime soon. So my advice, broadly speaking, after of course try EOSIO, it's nice, would be to start going straight for the how does blockchain transform whatever the experience that I'm trying to make. If you get that, if you study what blockchain can do for an experience and you nail that, the rest of it will fall into place. You will find many people in the community that will rally to you, help with the rest of it. We've done a lot of work, a lot of preparing in the community for all of these blockchains to make sure that the technology is sound, stable, and it can be easily developed for. What we need is that next level of innovation and intuitiveness that allows creators to really go out there and nail the use cases that are transformed by blockchain. So my advice is, remember, look at the fundamentals of blockchain, understand how that can affect kind of the way information is processed by whatever it is that you're making, and then go figure out how to make that be different in the world. Nail that, even if it's in a high fidelity prototype and it doesn't actually work on a blockchain, and you will find that people will rally behind it and get the rest of that last mile blockchain work done. That has become the easy part, and that's been a decade worth of hard work. But now we need the next step. Now we need to stop worrying about that last mile of getting you onto a blockchain. We've got that. Now we need to start getting the blockchain out into the world.
Well, I think you guys have done a fantastic job of that so far, and congratulations on the solution. And thank you very much for your time today, Bart. I wish you well, and I look forward to seeing what happens next with Block.one. Very excited to see what happens next.
Great talking to you.